The Browns, they're putrid. They're the worst team in the NFL.
The season, the 2024 season is over.
Lamar Jackson can't win the playoffs. He'll win a third MVP, though, so that's great.
Drew Sample is the most important piece of the Bengals offense next year.
Go Joe Burrow. He deserves to be MVP. I wish he was the Browns quarterback. Kind of mean that.
If you're looking for the most reactionary, silly, and unserious show on the internet, then you're home. Live from Hamilton, Ohio, it's Off the Bench by Chatterbox Sports on 1410 ESPN Radio.
Nothing better than 3 games in less than 24 hours.
That's right.
That's what the Reds have going against them or for them. I'm not really sure. It just depends what happens today. But welcome in, Off the Bench. Justin Kenner, Casey McAllister, Elliot Rearing, Jacob Tissett. Off and rolling here on a Thursday. Happy Thursday, everybody. How we feeling? What's the vibe and the energy like? The Reds really kicked us in the man parts
Yeah,
yesterday.
that's the thing about a doubleheader, right? It's just exponential joy or pain.
I don't know when the last time the Reds swept a doubleheader was. I'm trying to remember it, and I don't. And I honest to God, I don't. Maybe it was against the Rockies at some point. I'm trying to remember it, and I don't remember. All I remember are these doubleheader sweeps against us.
Yeah.
And another one happened last night, and it's infuriating because truthfully, none of those 2 games were competitive. A 1-0 loss, and then 1-0 until Alexis Diaz showed up, and then it's a 9-1 loss that was never even a game to begin with. So tough. It's a tough start.
Reds get outscored 15-1 yesterday in losing games 2 and 3 against the Cardinals, and they'll look to wrap up the series with the Cardinals and hoping for a split. Andrew Abbott going to be on the mound for the Reds. We'll talk more about that coming up here in just a little bit. But we do have Elliot's headlines coming up here shortly. But usually you'll have, like I said, that 3 games in a 24-hour window. You had a 12:40 game yesterday, 6:40 last night, 12:40 today. But the Reds are doing a lot of stuff too, moving some pitchers around, calling guys up. We saw the debut of Chase Petty yesterday, which we'll dive into shortly. Luis May going to be making his debut for the Reds later on today, it sounds like. So not as a starter, but potentially coming out of the bullpen. And the question I have is, why did we see Chase Petty yesterday? Why are we going to see Luis May today? Was it necessary? Was it worth it? We know the answer to the first one after last night, but we'll get into the rest coming up here shortly. But let's kick off the show with Elliot's headlines, shall we?
Score updates, breaking news, local and national headlines. Whatever's going on in the world of sports, Elliot has you covered. Off the Bench brings you Elliot's headlines.
That's right. We'll start with the Reds. What a spectacular day for the Cincinnati Reds. Game 1, they trailed 1-0 for 8 innings on a Masyn Winn solo shot in the first. And then, as I mentioned, Alexis Diaz came in. He gave up back-to-back home runs.
And he's gone.
Speaking of back, he's going back to AAA.
No.
He is gone. Yeah, the Reds have optioned Alexis Diaz to AAA.
Well,
Charlie Goldsmith adds that the 3 best NL closers from 2023, Diaz, Bednar, and Camilo Duvall, have all 3 been optioned to AAA since then. It's just such a fickle position.
And shout out to everybody who said they wanted to trade him last year.
Yeah.
You were right.
Yeah.
They were right, because he's certainly not going to be on the Reds going further, at least for this season. There's just no role for him here. High leverage, doesn't have it. He doesn't have any command of his pitches. No. So brutal. It's flat out brutal. Alexis Diaz again, back home runs. Masyn Winn started it with a home run, and he ended it with a home run as well. 6-0. The final score of Game 1. TJ, Ellie, and Trevino were the only 3 Reds to get hits in that first game. Brady Singer, another quality start, 6 innings, allowing 2 hits. Again, only the solo shot that he gave up. So another good start, but another seemingly a 1-0 loss. I'm going to count that as a 1-0 loss. Game 2, didn't have a shot. Legitimately didn't have a single chance to win that game. Chase Petty gave up 3 in the first, he gave up 1 in the second, and he gave up 5 in the third. Espinal had 3 hits. Ellie had 2. One of them, debatable. Chase Petty's final line, 2 1/3 innings, 7 hits, 9 earned runs, 2 walks, 3 strikeouts. It couldn't have been a worse debut for Chase Petty, but unfortunate. Moving over to the other scores in Major League Baseball. The Athletics, they crushed the Rangers 7-1. The White Sox, they had 3 errors. That helped the Brewers beat them 6-4 yesterday. The Mets, they fell to the Diamondbacks 4-3. The Mets scored 2 in the bottom of the ninth, but fell short anyway. The Blue Jays, they win for the first time in a while, 7-6. They beat the Sox in 10 innings. The Royals, they shut out the Rays 3-0. Jonathan India had another hit.
There we go.
Wow, good for him.
Starting to stack them.
He is, 1 for 5. The Nationals were handed a loss by the Phillies yet again. This time the score 7-2. The Pirates, they get a game back on the Cubs with a 4-3 win. That game was delayed for a decent amount of time due to an unfortunate situation where a fan fell from the right field bleachers. Very, very scary video. It was on Twitter yesterday. The fan, as of the last update I have, is that he is still in critical condition. So, very scary news in Pittsburgh.
You saw that video, right? I mean, it's quite a fall.
It's 21 feet. It's a 21-foot drop, and it looks like he did not land on his feet. So, it was.
He twirled a little bit. I mean,
Yeah,
that
it
was.
was
Stretcher and everything
Yeah.
came out.
Scary stuff.
Very, very, very scary. Heading over to the Mariners, they crushed the Angels 9-3. The Padres, they get past the Giants 5-3. The Rockies win their first game in their last 9, 2-1. They win over the Atlanta Braves. And the Dodgers, they beat the Marlins 12-7. They scored 34 runs in this 3-game sweep of Miami. 34 runs. Heading over to the National.
Maybe the Marlins aren't that good.
Yeah, that's what I would have thought.
Wow.
And by the way, another wasted opportunity against St. Louis now. Cannot win the series. Did not win the series against Miami either. NHL, the Capitals, they win the series against the Canadiens 4-1 with a 4-1 victory last night. The Panthers, they win their series 4-1 as well over the Lightning, 6-3 their win last night. And the Jets, they take the series lead over the Blues 3-2. They won 5-3. So we have some interesting hockey scores in the league. We have heading over to the NBA, the Lakers. They go down in 5.
It's tough. Lakers in 5, but not on top. It was always Lakers in 5, but sadly they'll be going home. Yeah, it's unfortunate. Always, never know when the last time you're going to be able to see a 40-year-old, player play. So every time LeBron loses in the playoffs, I cry a little bit and watch some highlights before I go to bed because you never know when it'll be over. We're going to have to do this song and dance for probably, the next 3 or 4 months?
Yeah.
When he says he's going to retire, he's not going to retire. We all know he's not going to retire. He's not going to retire without a farewell tour.
Yeah, he said last night he doesn't have the answers. I would say, I would venture to say the answer is that he's got 5 more years left in the tank.
Correct. Because funny enough, in this playoffs, at least the first round, obviously he won't go on any further. He led all players, both conferences, in steals and blocks.
Wild.
At 40 years old.
Just wild.
So I also, we were talking about it a little bit before the show, but I did find it interesting that up until really 2 years ago, but it seems like most notably last night,
Sure.
records in the playoffs before you get to the finals didn't matter at all. Losing in the first, second, third round, that didn't matter whatsoever. And then LeBron, for the first time in his career at age 37, a year after Jordan made the playoffs for the last time at age 36, he's lost in the first round 3 times now. And apparently that's real bad.
Yeah, bad to lead the league in everything at age 40. The Lakers, again, Luka had 28, LeBron 22. Rudy Gobert, I don't know where he came from, but 27 points, 24 rebounds for Rudy Gobert.
Think about how different this series would have been if the Lakers would have had Mark Williams.
Yeah.
Not playing a center all series long, getting tore up by Rudy Gobert in the final game of the series. If you had a center you can play, shout out Jackson Hayes, maybe you'd have a chance.
They were one Anthony Davis away.
Maybe,
but they were one Anthony
notably
Davis away.
Anthony Davis asked for a center.
Yeah. The 7-foot Anthony Davis.
That's right.
Center.
That's right.
103-96, the final score. The
Nico
Rockets,
was right.
Yeah, that's what they say. The Rockets get another game back from the Warriors. They now only trail 3-2 in the series. They're forcing Game 6. 131-116, the final score last night. So, all right, some of the series coming back to even.
Maybe. Adam Silver doing his best. David Stern getting there, stirring the pot.
That's right. And those, I believe, unless anybody has something, those are your headlines.
Travis Hunter, the quarterback for the Florida State, renounced his retirement.
Yes, Jordan Travis.
I know I said,
retirement.
I've been bad with names all week.
No, yeah. I mean, that's sad. Always is when you have a terrible injury like that derails someone's career for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know that anyone thought he was going to be a first-round pick or anything like that, but he certainly would have at least finished his rookie contract and probably been a career backup or third string in the NFL and had a wonderful career. So, yeah, certainly sad to hear, but that broken ankle got me a trip to the Rose Bowl, so I don't feel too bad.
Yeah, I was. If he doesn't get hurt, what was the projection for him as an NFL quarterback? Was that trending in a
I don't know that he would have gotten picked much higher. He got picked in the 5th round. I think he probably would have gotten picked in the 3rd or 4th. He wouldn't have gotten up to the 1st or 2nd, maybe not even 3rd. So probably still a day 3 pick, but obviously this is 1 year into his NFL career where, it would have at least probably been 4 or 5.
Yeah, again, that came out yesterday afternoon. Again, Jordan Travis announces that he is going to retire, but he potentially is looking for coaching opportunities, all that stuff down the road to remain in the game. So who knows? But
Norvell's obviously locked up at Florida State for a long time after that massive extension from a year ago. I wouldn't be shocked if Travis ends up there as a quarterback coach or some kind of analyst before he gets his feet set somewhere else.
All right, Chase Petty or Alexis Diaz, who was the bigger storyline from yesterday? We'll talk about that when we come back. Reds lose both games in the doubleheader in games 2 and 3 of this 4-game series against the Cardinals yesterday. They'll look to wrap up the series, hopefully split the series with the win coming up later on this afternoon, 12:40 the first pitch with Andrew Abbott on the mound. We'll get to all of that coming up. But Chase Petty was a story last night. So was Alexis Diaz. Who was the bigger story? We'll discuss next. Well, just when we started talking about how good this Reds team could be because of how dominant this lineup has been as of late, again, one of the top pitching teams in baseball, but also, they're ranked pretty high in a lot of major offensive statistical categories. Well, the bats went cold yesterday, but that wasn't even the biggest talking point after the Reds lose game 2 and 3 of the series. Games 1 and 2 of the doubleheader, they lose yesterday afternoon 6-0, 1-0 heading into the final inning, and then Alexis Diaz, well, it kind of blew up from there. They end up losing 9-1 against the Cardinals in game 3 last night, getting outscored on the day 15-1. But I think the big talking points were not about how the bats went cold and they weren't able to produce runs. It's the fact that 2 big pitchers for this team, or at least 2 guys that were the talking point a lot yesterday, had some abysmal outings. Let's talk about Alexis Diaz as we get rolling here. Alexis Diaz, starts the season on the IL. We saw some players in this bullpen that were kind of stepping up to new roles, adjusting to new roles, and then it was one of those when Alexis Diaz came back, it was, well, how do you even use Alexis Diaz? There's really no need to force him back into the closer situation, but it is nice to have that depth and that experience with Alexis Diaz coming out of the bullpen, so everything's fine. But it hasn't been fine. Alexis Diaz, who last year had very, very good closing numbers. He put up very good numbers out of the bullpen, but he also was one of those that made you scoot up on the edge of your seat. You were waiting for the game to kind of blow up. He had a habit of putting runners on base before ultimately getting the job done and closing out the game. He's doing that this year, putting a lot of runners on, but he's not keeping them from scoring. And he's been hit hard. He's been hit a lot, and that was his case yesterday. And as Terry Francona likes to say, he loves pitching, and he pitched a lot yesterday, guys, and it wasn't good.
He did. He does. That's the thing I took away yesterday
Right.
is that Alexis Diaz loves to pitch.
That's why he tries to
pitches
make these
good. He
outings
gets out
last
quick.
as long
Yeah.
as possible.
Correct. He wants to pitch for as long as humanly possible, and if he has to walk or hit some guys, then that's fine. We'll just extend all of our innings. Alexis Diaz, I think we all pretty much knew. I know there were some of us that maybe believed he could become the guy that he was 2 years ago. But he's been on a downward trajectory since 2022. It started last year. And I know the statistic where he still delivered in all of the saves, or at least most of them. I understand that. But you can't possibly watch a Reds game where Alexis Diaz pitches and say, you know what, I'm going to walk away from this saying Alexis Diaz did a great job. He did a great. He got the saves when he needed to last year. He got saves. But every single game was uglier than the next. Then he starts this year on the IL. He comes back. He's lost his closer role. Emilio Pagan has taken it. And now there's no role for him. There's no role for Alexis Diaz to pitch before the 9th inning. There's no role for Alexis Diaz to be the innings eater. It's over. It's over. There is no reason for him to pitch again for the Cincinnati Reds. There is no role for him on the Cincinnati Reds. It's over. I wish it would have ended a little bit better, his tenure here in Cincinnati. It's frustrating that seemingly we didn't get to capitalize on a guy that was, one of the best closers in the National League for a couple-year stretch. But that's baseball, man. It's a wild position. Jacob and I were talking about it before. It comes and it goes so quickly, and you don't know. And you don't know when it's going to go away. And Alexis Diaz, unfortunately, his talent, the Monstars have come in and they've taken it because there's nothing left, and there's no coming back from it.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I think myself and a lot of the people that were kind of on team Alexis Diaz for the beginning part of this year, it was more so optimism than anything else because we've watched the same games. I mean, I certainly have watched the same games you have, and there's not a lot of reason to believe in the stuff Alexis Diaz was showing us over the last year or so. But, I mean, I still, even after yesterday, I have some semblance of the belief that him at his best is better than anyone in our bullpen at their best. The question is, will he ever come close to that again? And after yesterday, I don't know if I'm willing to try. I'm punting on the Alexis Diaz experiment. I think it's over. I think we saw the peak, and closer's tough. They just don't last very long unless you're the elite of the elite of the elite. And the Reds are going to have to try their hand at someone else. Maybe they'll throw Luis May in there in his debut and see if he can shut it down. Emilio Pagan's been great. I expect Ashcraft to probably get some more high leverage situations as we move forward. Tony Santillan absolutely is going to be in that role. But the best case scenario for the Reds was always that, Alexis Diaz was going to return to form. And that ship has sailed, it seems.
I saw people were upset that he was put in that situation.
Yeah.
I think that's probably one of the better situations to use Alexis Diaz. You don't have to waste one of your guys to close out games in Tony Santillan or Emilio Pagan. I would save them for when you're winning and you have to protect the lead rather than maintain it. Alexis Diaz has pitched in the 9th inning for 3 straight years now for the Reds. Why couldn't he get 3 outs there? And he almost got 3. He got 2 outs right off the rip, and then all hell broke loose. But I don't fault Terry Francona for pitching Alexis Diaz in that spot at all. He had to have gotten 3 outs. That's the belief that he had, and he just didn't. He couldn't capitalize on that moment at all. I know people wanted to see, you got to maintain the 1-0 lead into the bottom of the 9th, and that's true. But when your offense gives you absolutely nothing, they had 3 hits in that entire game. If you don't trust that your offense can make a comeback in the 9th, he didn't tank on it.
Especially with the heart of the order coming.
Correct. He didn't tank the game. Terry, I saw a lot of people saying that. He didn't tank the game. He was just strategically saving some guys for the back end of a doubleheader. Because if they're pitching the game, first game of the doubleheader, most likely they're not going to be available for the second game.
For the back end of the doubleheader, with a rookie starting, where you think, even in the best case scenario, you're probably going to need that bullpen to eat up a few more innings than you expect with any of our normal starters on the mound.
Yeah.
So that certainly comes into play. And also, if Alexis Diaz is on the Reds, you have to pitch him in situations like that.
Correct.
Or he needs to not be on the Reds. And obviously yesterday he wasn't good enough to pitch in that situation, and today he's no longer on the Reds. But if he is and he's up, you got to use him. And if you think he's good enough to be up here, then you are saying that he's a high leverage reliever for this team, because that's what he's been when he's been up here. And you put him in there with a 1-run game at the end of the game, and he blew it. And it cost him his spot on the Major League roster, and I think that's the right way to handle it.
And the question I have, too, is you guys kind of mentioned it a little bit already. If the Reds were up 1-0 and you were sending him out there to close it out, you're holding your breath. People would complain if the same result happened where he blows that lead. You bring him in, you're down 1-0. Obviously not in a close situation, but you trust him. Look, Brady Singer goes 6 innings, gives up 1 run on 2 hits, and then obviously Rogers and Barlow come in, don't give up a run. Everything looks like we've learned to trust this pitching staff at this point. We still hold our breath when Alexis Diaz goes out there. If you can't use him in a closing situation, you can't lose him when you're down 1-0. When can you use him? What are the rules for how to use Alexis Diaz? He's here to be able to pitch in these types of situations, or was here, and he couldn't get the job done. And that's why, as you mentioned, Jacob, again, he was optioned back to Louisville earlier this morning. Luis May called up. He will make his debut for the Reds coming up later on this afternoon, which we'll talk more about that in a moment. But On the flip side, obviously, great outing from Brady Singer. Obviously,
Fantastic.
The Reds,
Continues to.
Yeah, this reminds me of earlier in the season when the Reds weren't hitting and weren't scoring runs, where that overshadowed the outings from the starting pitching. Just another one from Brady Singer. We're going to talk a lot about Alexis Diaz, obviously, Petty coming up in a moment. But it's nice to see the Reds still getting contributions from the middle of that rotation. Obviously, Andrew Abbott's going to be up later today, expecting a solid outing from him. But another great outing from Brady Singer.
You can't look at that trade and say the Reds didn't absolutely fleece the Royals. Jonathan India in 2025, again, this is my guy, and I like him a lot.
I can read it if you want me to, if it's too hard for you.
No, I'll read it. You can read this. You can read the Singer stuff if you want. But Jonathan India has a negative WAR through 28 games. He has 22 hits and 102 at-bats. He has 5 extra base hits, 0 home runs, 5 RBIs, 0 stolen bases, caught stealing twice. He's hitting .216 with a .320 OBP. He has a slugging percentage of .260. Can we have the Brady Singer stats?
Yeah, I know win-loss isn't a huge thing for pitchers, but 4-1 in 6 starts.
4-1 asterisk. He gave up 1 run in 6 innings.
0.5 WAR, positive. So
good.
almost a full game better than Jonathan India in a career best ERA. Well, not quite. 2022 he had a 3.23. This year he's rocking a 3.24.
Pretty good. The Reds won the trade. Brady Singer's been absolutely phenomenal. You talk about Hunter Green and Nick Lodolo and all the exciting young guys. I feel like quietly Brady Singer might be having one of the better seasons on the Reds this year, and just because it's lost in the shuffle with Austin Hayes, he gets the cool home runs, and Gavin Lux leads the league in average. Hunter Green's incredible, throws every pitch over 100 miles an hour, and it's somewhere in the shuffle you just get lost that Brady Singer has been one of the, if not the best, third best pitcher in a rotation in baseball this year. He's been absolutely phenomenal.
And I also think that the thing that Brady Singer gives you, which isn't a surprise, but certainly great to see come true. It's something we talked about a lot right after the trade was made. It gives you a level of consistency with an MLB arm that even the guys that I think we all think are better, Hunter Green and Nick Lodolo, might not provide. I mean, we've seen Hunter Green put up a Cy Young season last year and obviously been one of the best pitchers in baseball this season, but when it blows up, it blows up. And for Nick Lodolo, it's very similar. So far for Brady Singer, we really haven't seen that. I mean, one start where he got hit around a little bit early, but even then was able to bounce back. Hasn't allowed more than 3 earned runs in a single game so far this year. Hasn't went less than 4 innings. I mean, this is a guy where you have consistency and you know what you're getting every single time he's going to be on the mound. There was really no question yesterday. Hey, is Brady Singer going to, screw us in the first game of this doubleheader by only going 2 1/3, 3 innings? No, because he's going to go, 5 or 6, because that's just who he is in his MLB career, and that's such a great thing for the Reds to have in this rotation where there is so many young guys that can be so volatile.
All right, again, the Reds get pummeled yesterday in games 2 and 3. The Cardinals series, 15-1, they get outscored, and they lose 6-0 in game 1 of the doubleheader and 9-1 in game 2, and that's where we got a chance to see Chase Petty, one of the Reds' top pitching prospects, make his debut, and it did not go well. So that's what we're going to talk about when we come back. Obviously, Alexis Diaz, unfortunately, the story of the first loss of the day yesterday in the doubleheader. And unfortunately, Chase Petty, the story for the Reds' blowout loss 9-1 last night in Game 2 against the Cardinals. We'll talk about Chase Petty and his debut with the Reds when we come back. More Off the Bench next. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. That was kind of what I was thinking yesterday. I understand why we saw Rhett Lauder be called up last year, kind of ahead of schedule, if you will, when it comes to what we thought his projected timeline would be of when we would see him make his debut. I know Chase Burns earlier in the season was asked about his goals for the year, and that he looked at Rhett Lauder making a debut a year after being drafted. That's kind of what his goal was as well, is to be called up and make his debut with the Reds a year after being drafted. But, you kind of, I don't want to put an asterisk next to it, but I don't think we see Rhett Lauder last year unless those circumstances lead to him making his debut with the Reds. Like, things have to go awry for some of these guys to be called up a little bit ahead of time or before we think that they're ready. And I guess it doesn't matter what we think. I guess all that technically matters is what Francona and the Reds organization thinks. But yesterday was one that, while everyone was kind of excited to see Chase Petty, it did remind me of the same feeling I had when Rhett Lauder made his debut last year. I don't really want to see Rhett Lauder make his debut last year. Now, it worked out. Now Rhett Lauder, when he gets healthy, really pushing to see him called up back up to the Reds as soon as possible. But yesterday I felt the same way, or last night I should say, about Chase Petty. I was just scratching my head saying, why are we seeing Chase Petty right now? What is the purpose of seeing Chase Petty right now? And, I think it felt even more, there was a little bit more urgency behind my concern, especially after losing the first game of that doubleheader, because now it put all the pressure on Chase Petty to go out there and perform to prevent the Reds from losing back-to-back games after them winning 5 straight heading into this particular matchups for the day, if you will. Chase Petty, we're going to talk about, obviously was not a great outing, gives up 9 runs and just over 2 innings of work. But the problem I had was not what he did when he pitched. It was, why was he pitching to begin with? Maybe some of the mentality was, well, this lineup right now is producing. Even if he goes out there and gives up a few runs, the way this team has been swinging the bat and producing runs, it'll give him a little bit of wiggle room. It's not like he's being called up earlier in the month when they were not producing runs or hitting the ball at all. Ironically enough, that ends up being the case in both games yesterday. I'm not as much focused on the result of it as I am questioning why was he even making his debut to begin with. The strength of this team has been their pitching. To me, there was no need to tinker with this rotation, to tinker with the lineup, to tinker with anything at this point. I just don't understand why Chase Petty even made his debut, as far as I'm concerned. Now you've messed with the morale of this kid moving forward. He's mentally rocked. I mean, he had, 30 people in attendance yesterday, and a lot of people fly out to be able to see his debut, and unfortunately they spend a lot of money and a lot of time to come and see him only go a couple innings of work. It's going to be hard to build him up confidence-wise moving forward, and that's a risk that you take at any point. But I'm just bummed that it happened ahead of schedule, or was it ahead of schedule? Do you believe that he was called up at the right time? And do you agree or disagree that maybe that was not the time to do it for the Cincinnati Reds? Why yesterday of all days?
It very clearly was not the right time to do it, using hindsight. But I don't understand the logic. The only thing I could think of is they wanted, they liked their chances against the Cardinals, and maybe they wanted to give everybody an extra day's rest because they pushed everybody back a day. So maybe that was the case. That's the only thing I can think of. Give everybody an extra 24 hours to sit on it. It seems strange. It seems strange to me. He wasn't ready. He very evidently wasn't ready to face major league pitching. He had as rough of a start as one could possibly have. I know people were upset that he showed frustration when Terry took him off. I love that. I mean, I think if you see a player that's visibly upset after a performance like that, it just shows that he cares. I have no doubt in my mind that eventually, I don't know if it'll be with the Cincinnati Reds. In fact, I would venture to say it won't be with the Cincinnati Reds. But wherever Chase Petty, wherever his career takes him, I'm sure he's going to have a successful one. It just, for me, it seems like there's not going to be enough room in our starting 5 whenever that would be for the Reds. Maybe they were trying to see it now. Maybe they could see if they could slide him in, but it never seemed like that was the case. It seemed like they were going to give him a doubleheader day. Hopefully they win game 1, and game 2 was like a practice game. That's the only thing I can think of for Chase Petty. Give him some confidence and give him something to work for down in Louisville. It just went completely wrong. I mean, it just went completely wrong. I wish him the best, but it is what it is. I hope that I don't root against him, but it's going to be difficult, at least in my eyes, for him to come back for the Reds when you got Burnsy and you got Lauder in the wings whenever those guys are ready.
What's the scenario other than an injury that gets him in this major league rotation? I mean, he's on the same trajectory. I know he's younger than a lot of those guys, but he's on the same trajectory to be, a major league pitcher at the same time as all those guys you just named. And that's not even talking about, the Hunter Greens, the Nick Lodolos, the Andrew Abbott's that are already up here, Brady Singer, who we have for a few more years and just traded Jonathan India for. I mean, I think Chase Petty's pretty comfortably on the outside looking in of the top 5 pitchers in the Reds organization right now. If you're looking at, who you want to be in that rotation, an ideal scenario where everyone lives up to their potential. So I think it's tough for Chase Petty to find his way into this Reds rotation without performing yesterday. I think that was, really an opportunity for him to speed that along. And I know Terry Francona said that his performance wouldn't have a massive effect on whether or not he stayed or went. But I have a hard time believing, if he went, 6 or 7 innings of 1-run ball, that he'd be sent right back down.
Yeah.
So certainly that decision's made a lot easier, and you have that quote to hang up on now that he had a blow-up start, and then you can send him back down and say it wasn't all just because of that. This was the plan all along. And he was the 27th man for a doubleheader, so that was the plan, and he was going to go back down. But I still think those plans can certainly change if he comes up and mows down a St. Louis Cardinals, lineup yesterday. So it's frustrating. It's unfortunate. And I think it's kind of, grown for some Reds fans because Chase Petty's a name that we've heard thrown around in trade conversations a lot.
Yep.
And a lot of Reds fans have said, well, him specifically is someone we can't move. And we can't trade Chase Petty for one of these major league players that'll help the Reds win right now. And for him to come up in his debut and look as bad as he did, it's frustrating that, we held on to a guy like that that's obviously, or it seems right now, isn't going to help the Reds in 2025. And if everything goes according to plan, he won't help the Reds in 2026 because he won't be one of the top 5 starting pitchers. So I don't know where to go from here if you're Chase Petty, but I certainly think there's more questions than answers after yesterday.
And again, I don't want to take it like I'm beating up the kid. He struggled when he came up. It's just, in my eyes, it was a bad situation. That rain delay just destroyed. Destroyed us. It just destroyed us. We were in a groove. We were hot, and all of a sudden now it's like you're fighting for your life against the St. Louis Cardinals, which is a series you need to win. You have to win. The Cardinals are not a good baseball team at all. At no position are they a good baseball team. And the Reds getting blown out, 15-1 yesterday, just can't happen. I wish they didn't call up Chase Petty. It just because I felt like it felt like that wasn't your best option to try to win a game. If it would have went well, obviously we look back and say, great job, Terry, and great job, everybody, and great job, Chase. Didn't go that way. We'll see where his future lies, but I'd imagine there's not going to be too many more starts with the Reds.
Yeah, and you guys seem pretty confident that he will be traded, right? Or what? I don't know. The future is, because the thing is, if that's the mentality of the Reds, I felt like he had way more value to you yesterday before he stepped foot on that mound than he does now. And that's easy to say, well, oh yeah, of course his trade stock took a hit because that's the last memory you have of him. But I think sometimes the thing about prospects is it's all unknown. But the thing is, everyone leans to the positive side of the unknown and say, man, they're going to give up Chase Petty to go get Luis Robert, to go get whoever they need to go get, because it's going to take giving up some top prospects to go get a name. Like if the Reds continued on this trend that they were in before yesterday, you would think that the front office is already looking ahead. Maybe that's what some of this was too. Planning ahead for months as we get, when we get closer to that deadline. If the Reds are in position where they could strike and make a move, they're going to have to give up something. They have to give up prospects. I just think Chase Petty had more value of the unknown of what he is at the major league level versus risking throwing him out there in that situation yesterday. Who knows? I'm curious if some people just think we're overreacting to him being moved at all. I agree with you. I don't see where there's room at the table with this rotation if everything goes well moving forward.
It's really not an indictment on Chase Burns as much as it sounds like it is. Hunter Green's a Cy Young pitcher, Chase Petty. The Chases get all mixed up in my brain. It's not an indictment on Chase Petty at all. What I'm saying
Jamar
here.
Chase.
Right. I think he can be a really good major league pitcher. We traded Sonny Gray for him. He's a top 10 prospect in the Reds organization. My question is, where does he fit in if everything works out? Because if it works out, Hunter Green's starting 20-plus games a year as a Cy Young finalist. If it works out, Nick Lodolo's your no doubt too, until Chase Burns gets up and you think he's going to be a Cy Young finalist as well. Rhett Lauder last year had an ERA under 2 in his MLB debut season. You don't think he's going to be better than Rhett Lauder. You took Rhett Lauder second overall in the draft. And then Brady Singer this year is unbelievable so far. So there's a clear starting 5, and I didn't even say Andrew Abbott's name in terms of who I think are, the bulk of where you're putting your faith in this Red starting pitching for the next few years. Does Chase Petty have a role to play on this team? Absolutely. Do I think that role might be more valuable on the trade block? Maybe.
Yeah, I have no doubt in my mind he's going to be a fine pitcher wherever he lands. I just don't know if it's going to be here, and it's okay if it's not here. I'm not going to be.
Right.
I just think you have legitimately like 6 guys in the rotation that, as of right now, I'd take over him. It's because he's young. I understand that. It's just. I don't think there's a long-term future here, and I could be wrong.
There's
That's all
one
I'll
position
say.
I have faith in this Reds organization, top to bottom, and it's starting pitching.
Yeah.
And of the starting pitchers in this organization, if everyone lives up to their ceiling, Chase Petty is towards the bottom of that, which is why I feel like he's the most expendable. Because how do Reds fans and the Reds organization have to operate? And I've said this for a long time about Ellie and McLain and Marte and all this young core as well. You have to operate as if most of these guys are going to hit their ceiling.
Yeah.
Because it's the only chance you have. If Ellie or McLain or Hunter Green come around and aren't as good as we think they're going to be, the Reds don't have the depth to work that out. So you kind of have to operate as if you're going to hit on most of these guys. And I think if that's how you're operating, you can get a lot more for Chase Petty. I think Evan Maurer puts it in the chat there. I think you could get Petty to be a lot better than Abbott or Singer. Maybe that's a conversation to have. But I think after yesterday, it's very tough to have a discussion about trading one of those guys that has looked better in the MLB than it is if you're having a discussion about trading Chase Petty, which I don't even know if they're having. I'm just saying.
All right, so the Reds, we saw the debut of Chase Petty yesterday. Didn't go well. Alexis Diaz, he gets option down. Obviously, they're bringing up Luis May, who was their 20th ranked prospect in the Reds system. He was promoted to MLB to make his debut coming up later on this afternoon. Now, not starting. Going to be out of the bullpen. Has an ERA sitting around 4 right now. 9 strikeouts, 7 walks, and 10 innings. Chatterbox highlights the fact that he has hit 103 miles per hour this season with his sinker. At times, the only thing I'm focused on is this team not sinking even more by losing 3 of 4 against the Cardinals. But we saw a debut with obviously Petty yesterday. Didn't go well. What's your guys' thought process on Luis May? I'm not as concerned, seeing as he's not starting. I would be concerned about starting 2 rookie pitchers back-to-back when you have a great rotation as it is in a much-needed game against a divisional opponent. We've talked about the importance of these divisional games to begin with, because of the fact that we think the only way this team makes the playoffs or has a chance is to win this division. That's why I was also not pleased with that decision yesterday. But how we feel about Luis May at this point, who could possibly make his debut. He's called up today, but could possibly make his debut later today.
Look, you call up a pitcher that's touched 103, 104, and I'm going to get excited.
That's right.
I don't really care what the rest of the numbers are. That's going to be very fun to see. I mean, I was at the games when I was younger watching Aroldis Chapman pump 105, and it's one of the most electric atmospheres I've ever been in at a Great American Ballpark. So hopefully Luis May can come up and be a beast. Certainly has one of the more lively pitches in minor league baseball, and he's a top 20 Reds prospect. So those are the guys you're relying on. Hopefully he can be a key piece of this bullpen moving forward. But I mean, I know I'll be excited to see him when he runs out for the first time.
Yeah, a 4 ERA, 9 innings, limited work, 4 earned runs on 7 hits, 10 strikeouts. I'm very excited. Anytime we get a guy that can help this bullpen, I'm more than thrilled. So hopefully we get at least an inning out of him today. That would be very, very cool to me.
Yeah, in those 9 innings, he does have 8 walks. So it seems like we might have traded Alexis Diaz for a younger, slightly more velocity Alexis
with an
Diaz.
Exciting sinker.
Yeah. So I'm all in. Let's roll that dice again.
Yes.
All right. So last night, Chatterbox Reds, following the Reds' games 2 and 3 losses on the doubleheader against the Cardinals. Chatterbox Reds, Trace Fowler, Nick Kirby both weighed in on the call-up of Luis May, and we'll have that for you when we come back. Off the bench, Justin Kinner, Casey McAllister, Elliot Rearing, Jacob Tissett. We'll be right back. I'm 90% sure I never said, "Hey, Casey, how are you today?" Did we introduce Casey today?
I don't think we did.
I don't think I
didn't know
did.
that we did.
Casey, how are you? I'm so sorry, my friend.
Holy cow.
I'm here. I'm out of the corner. I've made it out. I'm here. No, stop that. Quit that. No, he's over there doing the yeet nonsense.
See, wait, I didn't even know what that was.
Yeah, he's just
I
over there
don't know what that
yeeting.
is.
That's ridiculous.
These two pretending they don't know what it is. They yeet to their car. They eat when they get home.
I sure hope not. I think much less of them.
I think much less of that.
But Casey, hope you're doing well.
Yeah, well, I mean, would have been doing fantastic if the Reds could just, look good. But
Yeah.
anytime we are really positive about the Reds, it just
It does seem to be the kiss of death around here.
It does.
Yeah.
It does.
That usually happens to me more times than not. If I criticize a player, they usually play really well.
Yep.
Ellie De La Cruz, you can thank me anytime now.
That's true. That's true.
Joe Burrow thanks me every day for all the criticism. I try to come up for him, and then he proves me wrong, and then it's great. But when we start to praise these guys is when it goes, downhill pretty quickly. But no, before we get into more Reds, well, this is technically Reds, but last night, Chatterbox Reds, Trace Fowler, Nick Kirby, weighed in on the announcement of Luis May being called up. Again, the Reds' number 20 prospect in the system. We're excited about a chance to see another prospect come through and obviously make an impact. Obviously, this roster is built with a lot of guys that the Reds that are homegrown, that have come up through the system, have made solid debuts. But all of a sudden, that luck it ran out yesterday. Chase Petty did not have a good debut. Luis May will possibly be making his debut later today. Here's what to expect with Luis May. Here was the reaction from Trace Fowler and Nick Kirby on Chatterbox Reds.
Luis May, it's a high-risk, high-reward guy if he is called up. If Luis May comes up and is absolutely dominant, wouldn't surprise me the least bit. If Luis May comes up and walks the first 4 batters he faces, wouldn't surprise me either. So it's a real kind of gamble, but I don't know. I probably would have kept him down longer, but at some point he is just going to have to come up here and you see what you get. So I don't know, I'd be excited to watch Luis May, but kind of hold my breath at the same time.
Yeah, no, it'll be a love-hate relationship based off the very first appearance by him. If he's able to strike, a couple guys out and get out of a clean inning, throwing 104 miles an hour, and half the city's going to be like, "Where's this guy been? Why in the hell isn't he up?" And then he'll come out the very next time and walk 6 guys in a row, and everyone's going to realize that's probably why. I'm guessing that's how this whole thing will go, and I hope I'm wrong. It's just really tough to break guys in tough spots that have never had big league experience. You've seen it tonight. Chase Petty's not this bad. He just was a young kid that got thrown into he got thrown into a spot that he wasn't ready for, and unfortunately he threw some cement mixers. I don't know how else to say it. He threw some bad pitches. And you know what I would give the Cardinals credit, man. They didn't miss the pitches either, though.
Again, that was Nick Kirby, Trace Fowler, Chatterbox Reds. You can catch that post-game after every Reds game, and Chatterbox Reds pre-game, of course. But one thing Kirby said that caught my attention of, I guess you have to bring him up at some point, and this goes back to my point about Chase Petty earlier, and that was about Luis May, but the same question I have about Chase Petty earlier, well, yeah, you have to call him up at some point, but why is this that point? Why is it in the middle of a important divisional series against a team that you're supposed to be better than, that you just got swept and your ass kicked by yesterday? Why is this stretch where we need to decide that, hey, and I'm not questioning Kirby, I'm just saying, I understand what he's saying. At some point,
You're questioning the organizational philosophy.
I'm questioning why now. I
Yeah.
agree he needs to be called up at some point, but why now in an important divisional series against the Cardinals? Luis May has less of a chance of hurting this team than the debut we saw of Chase Petty yesterday. I'm just questioning the organizational decisions as far as that's concerned.
I do think Chase Petty was strictly the rain out in the doubleheader, and you're protecting the back end of the rotation without losing a day of rest for one of those guys. I think he would have pitched, whether it was the Cardinals or the Nationals or the Rockies or whoever. I think if there was a rain out in a doubleheader in this instance, I think it probably would have been Chase Petty. That's just what we found out yesterday. In terms of Luis May, maybe we don't even see him today. That is the other thing about the bullpen. You're swapping in spots with Alexis Diaz. Alexis Diaz threw nearly 30 pitches last night, was completely unusable today. Certainly leads you to believe that maybe they plan on using that slot in today's game, which would obviously be Luis May at this point, but certainly don't have to. If Andrew Abbott's able to go 6 innings, and you can go with the normal Santiago Pagan at the back end, and you might be good to go. So yeah, maybe we don't even see Luis May today, and that doesn't come into play against the Cardinals. But I do think if he is next on your list, and Alexis Diaz has to go down, you don't mess with that list just because you're playing a divisional opponent. As you know, as hard as it might be to see a blow-up rookie debut against the Cardinals, if he's next on your list and you have a spot open up for Alexis Diaz going down, I think it's the best move to just stick with what you believe in organizationally.
Yeah, I don't know if he's going to pitch today. I don't know what the scenarios would be to have him pitch.
It's certainly not anything remotely high leverage in a debut.
I'd imagine not. So I mean, maybe if they're thinking, well, it's going to rain today, maybe it gets ugly early. Who knows? But yeah, I mean, I have no doubt in my mind that he can be a great player in Major League Baseball eventually. It's just right now it seems like the command for Luis May is not the best. And for sending down Alexis Diaz, as Jacob said last segment, you're replacing Alexis Diaz with harder throwing Alexis Diaz.
And younger.
I'm always going to be excited to see whoever we got down in AAA or AA or whoever come up and play well for the Reds. But to Kinner's point, we are trying. I mean, you're trying to win games here in this stretch. This is the easiest stretch you're going to see all season long. I would have waited for the experiment time to happen after this.
I think a lot of us, know Luis May, and even more knew Chase Petty coming up through the system. And I do think it's kind of funny that, no matter how hyped the guys are, obviously Chase Petty, a top 10 prospect, Luis May down closer to the 20s. But even when you get into last year with, all the guys we've had come up since 2023, it's amazing the jolt that having a debut gives. And even just going into last night after Alexis Diaz blew game one, to have Chase Petty on the mound, it was, we lost game one, but we get to watch this guy debut tonight, and that should be fun. It wasn't. But, these debuts give you a little added juice that I just feel like the Reds don't usually get. And obviously, that can't be sustained unless you come up and play well early. But I do think this could matter in a positive sense in these games where, if Luis May comes in and looks really good in his debut, then maybe it gives juice to the rest of this team to go on a little bit of a run.
Yeah, the other thing, too, I guess I forgot as well, like when the Reds wrapped up that series at Miami, that was on a Wednesday, you had that Thursday off, and then from the 25th all the way through May 11th, they were supposed to play for like 17 or 18 straight days. Obviously, that postponement from 2 nights ago helped kind of break that up a bit, so they were in the midst of that long stretch. Maybe it was one of those two. All right, let's kind of give our rotation an extra day's rest. Let's bring up Chase Petty. So maybe I could see that frame of mind as well. The other thing, too, we're probably seeing him make that call up instead of anyone else because of the fact that every starter for the Louisville Bats at this point is on the IL. Yeah. Every one of the starters for the Louisville Bats at this point isn't even readily available. So just trying to take advantage of that as far as that goes. To me, last night's game wasn't as big as hurt as the first game that you had a chance to win.
Correct.
Great great outing from your starter. Obviously, great middle relief work. Alexis Diaz comes in, supposed to be a guy you can count on in that particular situation. You had the heart of the order coming up, in the bottom of the ninth. It should have been an opportunity for the Reds to win in classic walk-off form and feel good about that and feed off that energy, extend that win streak. Obviously, that couldn't be done. And now they're trying to end a losing streak because they lost both games yesterday. They're trying to avoid losing the series 3-1, and they're trying to at least leave with a split with Andrew Abbott on the mound coming up at 12:40.
It's one game, just like a rubber match in a 3-game series is, to go to a split from a loss here. But how much does it feel different to split a 4-game series versus losing it?
Yeah,
I mean it feels monumental.
It feels like you win.
Especially in this scenario where you lose both games of the 2-2 yesterday. Like, if the Reds win this game today, hopefully when the Reds win this game today, it changes the feeling of this series. And to go from the stretch we had before this series to turn around and lose 3 or 4 to the Cardinals would be such a gut punch. So this would salvage a lot to win today, I feel like.
It still goes back to my point where I make it seemingly every week that they're unable to take advantage of these situations, and until they do, it's going to be hard. Like, it's great that they sweep the Rockies. It's hard to sweep teams in Major League Baseball. I understand that. But you lose a series to the Marlins. You're going to not win a series against the Cardinals. You got the Nationals coming up, and if you don't win that one, then what are we doing here? What are we doing? And do you expect the Reds to be able to beat the Dodgers again and again and again? They've been able to do it in the past. The past few years, they've been able to beat the Dodgers. But eventually, this schedule is going to get a lot harder. The National League is no joke outside of this division, and we haven't played anybody outside of the division except for the Rockies, hardly. The Giants and the Rockies, pretty much. So, the Reds have to start taking advantage here, and it starts with salvaging a split of the 4-game series. It seems like I know Nick Kirby made the point on Chatterbox Reds 2 nights ago or whatever, 3 nights ago, whatever it was, that it's hard to sweep teams.
Yeah.
4-game series are tough because it is difficult. Like I'm okay with a split in a 4-game series 90% of the time. But like it's just because you're just holding water. You're moving the line down, and I'm okay with that. But this series, it just felt like you're better at every position except for closer maybe, and you don't walk away with a win. It just seems like a disappointment. I'm not going to fully blame the Reds. I know that the rain delay kind of shook things up a little bit, messed with the momentum, but it still feels like just a massive missed opportunity. And yesterday it felt like, getting outscored 15-1, just unacceptable.
Speaking of that closer, haven't seen Ryan Helsley yet through 3 games. So if we get down to a close one today, certainly expect him to come in fresh and slam that door.
Yep.
Yeah, again, the Reds wrap up the Cardinals series. As Elliot mentioned, they start a 3-game series at JBP against Washington tomorrow, and then they hit the road for a little bit where they'll have 4 with Atlanta and then 3 at Houston. So there's that. That's where it gets a little tougher as far as that's concerned. So hopefully they get a win so they can take some momentum into that Washington series and kind of go from there as far as that goes too. The other thing, and by the way, I'm laughing because the Reds, so the ESPN, they have the attendance next to each game. Yesterday's game 1, 15,000. It has a 0. So did no one go to the last night's game? It just has a 0.
Well, I think the 0 for the second game is probably closer to accurate than the 15,000 for the first game.
They said there was 15,000 in that first game? No, they didn't.
15,709 to be exact.
There might have been 15.
Woo!
15,000?
We were watching that game.
I don't mean to be disrespectful, but if you think there were more than 1,500 people, I think you're crazy.
Maybe they were all sitting Upper Bowl.
Maybe they combined.
Maybe they combined them. That's the only thing I can think of.
Okay.
15,000's outrageous.
It wouldn't even have been close in that first game yesterday.
Was that wild that considering the fact that the Reds were in the midst of an 18 straight day stretch, and obviously you get that postponement, it was weird that they so quickly pushed that game to the very next day. It's not like it's a non-division opponent where you won't play them the rest of the season. I was surprised that they so quickly put it to that next day. They could have put it to tonight, so they weren't playing 3 games.
Reds might be playing tonight.
Well, is it their weather coming?
Yeah. There's next to no chance that this game gets played at 12:40.
Ooh, what's coming?
It looks like some pretty serious rain coming. So
this will be on radio, 1410 ESPN Radio at this point. So keep that in mind. This is our Reds pregame show.
We'll see.
We'll see. All right, let's the good and the bad. We've talked a lot about the bad. Obviously, you lose back-to-back games. This team is 16-15. They're not in that wild card spot right now. They're 2 games back of the Cubs in the division right now. So quickly things move around when you lose 2 games in one day like that. We'll see what they could do today, but as bad as the pitching was, the offense disappeared yesterday. And it's been interesting kind of following your guys' reaction to the team over the last 2 weeks when they've heated up. When you look statistically at the fact that before this Cardinals series, they had the 6th best team average in Major League Baseball. They've hit the 11th most home runs in Major League Baseball. You have, 6 guys in this lineup on any given night that are hitting 290 or better at this point, obviously, just for the basic, average is concerned. But you have a lot of guys who are contributing. Only 2 other teams had scored more runs than the Reds, and that was the Cubs and the Yankees. Coming into this Cardinals series, only 2 other teams had scored more runs to this point of the season than the Reds, and that was the Cubs and the Yankees. And you guys just weren't. You were happy that they were winning. They were 3 games above 500. They're doing their thing. You guys weren't buying in. Is this why you weren't buying in? Was yesterday just a bad day at the office, a doubleheader? You approach doubleheaders differently? Or are we about to start to see this offense sputter a little bit? What are your concern levels about the offense from what we saw yesterday?
Well, we don't have Austin Hayes right now, and that's obviously a large reason as to why you might see a downtick in the offensive numbers. There was no world where I thought the Reds were a top 5 team in baseball in runs and offense and OBP and average. There's not a world where I think that's even remotely close to being accurate. Water's going to find its level always, and I'm not saying yesterday was indicative of that because I do think the rain delay kind of ruined everything a little bit. But no, I think that we've seen who the Reds are offensively, and who it is a very inconsistent group of guys. Elly De La Cruz, for what it's worth, Elly De La Cruz, I have his numbers, and he's on a 14-game hitting streak. His last 7 games, 11 hits, 26 at-bats. He's hitting .423 over his last 7. Over his last 15, he's got 19 hits and 58 at-bats. He's hitting .330 with a .412 OBP during his last 15. And over his last 30, he's hitting .280, .340 with a .450 slug. I mean, Elly De La Cruz is still showing up. Jose Trevino is still showing up. TJ Friedl is still fighting up there. There's just a bunch of guys that we need to step up. Matt McLain, I don't know when we're allowed to worry, because I saw people in the chat saying you're not allowed to worry about Chase Petty after that performance, and that's fair. He's a rookie, he got his first start, a surprise start, didn't go well for him. Matt McLain's been up for a while now this season, and it's been woeful. I mean, it's been a train wreck. Outside of that first week and a half, I'd say he's hitting, I believe, .067 over his last 7 games. 2 hits in his last 30 at-bats with 0 home runs. 0 runs batted in. He's hitting .127 over his last 15 games. In 55 at-bats, he has 7 hits, 1 home run. Hasn't been good. And this is all while striking out at a pretty high clip. I mean, over his last 30 games, we talked about Jeimer Candelario, 30 and 80.
Holy crap.
That's what Matt McLain has. He's got 31 strikeouts in his last 82 at-bats. Mm-hmm. It's just not going well. And I don't know what that answer is. I don't know what the fix is. Maybe we can say he's going to get better. And it's the water finds its level thing works the other way as well, and it does. But boy, it's getting more and more frustrating to watch one of our seemingly best players just not produce at all, even a little bit. I don't know when that stops, and to be quite honest, even with these struggles, I don't know what you can really do outside of just have Espinal take every at-bat he possibly can.
Yeah.
But,
I guess you could play Lux at second more often.
But without Austin Hayes, I don't know.
Right.
You know, there's too many ailments. It feels like to come back. Again, the Reds have played good baseball over the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks, but eventually we're gonna need our guys to just step up. The guys that we expected to step up have to. I love that Gavin Lux is here and he's producing. I love that Austin Hayes and Trevino and Austin Wins. I love that all these guys that we didn't expect to produce are producing. The guys that we expect to produce, we need them to start pinching in, because eventually it's not going to work. It's not going to work. So Matt McLain needs to be better. I don't know if he's hurt. I don't know what the deal is, but it's just not working for him right now at the plate.
At some point, it's not giving up on him. At some point, he needs to not be batting second.
Yeah.
It's getting to a point where it's almost unjustifiable. And I understand, it seems like the opposite side that we took on the Elly debate a couple weeks ago, but this is so much worse. And it's so much longer. And it might be injury related. Like, I think that's something else with this that is really sticking out like a sore thumb. He went 3 home runs in 3 straight games, got hurt, got scratched in back-to-back games, then he hasn't even looked like a major league player since.
And was readily, my favorite was he was scratched from back-to-back games, but was readily available to pinch hit. And it's like, you're either injured or you're not. You're either resting it or you're not. That's been the big question mark about Spencer Steer. We know the debacle that happened last year with Christian Encarnacion Strand.
With all due respect to Spencer Steer, messing with Matt McLain's injury is a much bigger issue in my eyes than trying to force Spencer Steer out there. And that's what I mean. Like, if he wasn't healthy, which I'm hoping, which is crazy to say, I'm hoping he's not right now.
Yeah.
Like, I'm hoping something comes out in the next, week or so that's like, hey, he's going to have to go on like a backdated 15-day IL. And
that's what I said about Candelario.
Right.
I hope he's hurt because there's at least justification for the poor performance, because if not, it's like, do you just stink?
I don't know what the answer is with Matt McLain. The answer isn't taking him out of the lineup. I think he has to battle through this, because that the Reds without Matt McLain they're really nothing. You certainly need him to be a catalyst for this team to get anywhere close to where we want to go. So I'm not taking him out of the lineup. I might take him out a little more often. Certainly use Espinal anytime you can justify it. When Hayes gets back, maybe you try Gavin Lux in the infield where he's played most of his games, and you give McLain days off here and there. But he still should be your everyday second baseman I just don't know the justification for batting him second anymore.
Yeah, there is none.
Fair enough. And I am like, when I was concerned about Ellie at the beginning of the season, what is the difference between being concerned about those struggles at the beginning and being concerned? I mean, is it just more because you had said Ellie could struggle like this for the next month? And keep in mind, there was a stretch where for the first 2.5 weeks of April, he was hitting under 200. I mean, for those sample size of games, not on the season, because he got off to a hot start in the first series. And
I think that's the thing right there.
Is it just a smaller sample size?
Is that this sample size for Matt McLain is getting to a point where it's very large. And he hasn't hit above 200 since Easter.
And this goes back to something you and I had kind of agreed on. We don't always agree on a lot. But I asked coming into the season, Matt McLain has just been annoyed at this T. Higgins to Jamar Chase. This one, you know what I mean? Like this 1-2, but this Jamar Chase to Joe Burrow, if you will, where, oh my gosh, the Bengals have Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, and you know what you have in those two. And people were doing the same thing with the Reds, Ellie De La Cruz and Matt McLain. And I kept saying, well, I know what we have with Ellie De La Cruz, but are we sure we know what we have with Matt McLain? He didn't even play his full rookie season, didn't play it all last year, but we're anointing him as one of the top second basemen in all of Major League Baseball, which I hope to be the case. I'm not like advocating that I want to be right in this particular situation, but I was hesitant to buy into all of that because he hasn't even played a full 162 games in his career yet. At what, how many games do you have to see? I mean, we've seen more questionable performances than great performances. So it is getting to that point 1 month into this season where, okay, is it an injury? Is it a slump? Or maybe the one that we all don't want to go down that road of, well, maybe he's just not as good as what we thought. And I hope and I pray to the baseball gods that that's not the case.
I also, something with certainly that last option that is the nightmare for Reds fans everywhere, I think we've all kind of learned over the last calendar year that with the guys in those roles that we are pseudo-forced to believe in, that we're just going to believe in them now because of what happened last year with Noelvi Marte. I think most people gave up on Marte last year, a very, very young player who was a promising prospect after he struggled after the steroid suspension. And this year he's been one of our most consistent players since he's been up with the Reds. So I think Reds fans are going to have a newfound patience maybe with these young players going through droughts. Maybe not a full season. I mean, certainly if we end 162 with Matt McLain hitting 150, that's a problem. But, if he can salvage this season and even get up to, something where it's just a respectable year, where it's not what we wanted Matt McLain to be, but you can believe in him going into next year, I think that's, really all that I need, certainly, to think about Matt McLain. If it's 150 in September, that's a problem. But if he's even close to a version we saw last year, then that's something I'll believe in for the future.
Charlie Goldsmith, who we had on the show earlier this week, he caught up with Terry Francona earlier today, so he has some updates. He posted a couple updates that we'll dive into. He talked to Terry Francona regarding Alexis Diaz. We have an update on Austin Hayes. I can't tell if this is good or bad, or if this is being handled like some of the other players that we're not really sure what their injury status is. So we'll get to all of that when we come back. More Off the Bench next. All right, we welcome you back off the bench. Justin Kinner, Casey McAllister, Elliot Rurin, Jacob Tissett with you here. We don't do the weatherman bit anymore. I know we might as well at this point with as much as it's been brought up on the show lately, but Jacob's going to be our pseudo weatherman today. You have an update as far as the Reds game. No Blazer. The Reds game looks like it could start on time, but it may have a delay possibly.
Yeah, it's not looking great. A lot of dark green, some orange, some red, some yellow coming in at late 12 o'clock, early 1 o'clock. So maybe this one gets started, but I don't know how long it'll last.
Well, it's a good thing they didn't move that game to tonight. If you're, battling all the elements as far as that goes. But Charlie Goldsmith had a chance to catch up with Terry Francona earlier today, ahead of their 12:40 first pitch time with Andrew Abbott on the mound as they're looking to split this series, of course, with – sorry, let me put that in there. That was about to shut off on me. Sorry. With the Cardinals, Andrew Abbott going to be on the mound. So Charlie Goldsmith caught up with Terry Francona. In regards to an Alexis Diaz update, Terry Francona told Charlie Goldsmith earlier today, he told Diaz that he's not giving up on him. But it is important to get right and figure it out in AAA. The consistency was not there. The Reds also need some innings available in the bullpen. So not giving up on him. I mean, I don't know what you're supposed to say if you're Francona, but I do like the fact that, hey, consistency is not there, and it's important to get right and to figure it out in AAA. Alexis Diaz has been around a while. Maybe it is an injury. We don't know, as we talked about earlier. But Francona, when asked about it, saying, hey, he's not giving up on him. He needs to get it right, though, in AAA.
Yeah, if you're not the bona fide closer of this team that can pitch in high-leverage situations, then you throw 30 pitches and give up back-to-back home runs. It's a no-brainer to send you down to AAA. You're useless for the next day or two. So if he's not giving up on him, he has certainly a pretty good out in terms of the amount of pitches he threw yesterday and his availability going into Game 4. But I don't know how you could not give up on him at this point.
They've all given up on him.
Yeah.
This is coach speak, and there's no world where Alexis Diaz is back with the Reds in a high leverage role. He could come back this season for sure based on injuries, but I have a hard time believing that Alexis Diaz is anything but an innings eater, and it's just a brutal place to be.
And he can eat them.
Yeah,
he's an innings eater. He
loves to pitch.
Lance McAllister tweeted this, and this was about 35 minutes ago. I thought this was interesting. Alexis Diaz had the lowest ERA in his first 100 appearances. It's a 1.91 of any Reds pitcher in franchise history. He was an all-star in 2023. He was voted the Reds' most outstanding pitcher in 2022 and 23. Fastest Red to 75 saves in team history. He led in saves each of his first 3 years. In 2024, he had 17 consecutive saves. In 2023, he had 22 consecutive saves. He was as good during that 2 years.
He's been around a while. I keep thinking we've only had him a few years. He's been around a minute.
He was as good as during that 3-year stretch as one could possibly be.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, it's just not the same Alexis Diaz as he was a couple years ago, and that position is just not something that you can get grandfathered in. There's going to be change, and it's going to be ever moving. Nobody thought Emilio Pagan was going to close games for the Reds this year. He has 8 saves on the season, so it changes rather quickly when you're in the bullpen. And unfortunately for Alexis Diaz, it's the changes come and it's gone against him.
You talk about those changes, and when it happens quickly. Francona tells Charlie Goldsmith earlier today regarding the call-up of Luis May, brings up the fact that as they learn to do that, when it clicks, all of a sudden you're looking at guys who could pitch toward the back of the game. Francona said in the spring, I'd put May in that category. So again, this just feels like a throw him out there and see type of thing. I just don't like when you're down 2-1 in a series you desperately need to at least come out with a split. I don't like experimenting with guys in that particular situation, but we'll see what ends up happening. We talked about the upside of that. The other thing that's most important out of the conversations he had with Terry Francona, an update on Austin Hayes. Austin Hayes is testing out his hamstring on the field right now as we speak. He's been out there, taking fly balls and just moving around, just trying to see if he's comfortable. But it was a very light update. There's nothing major as far as when we can expect to see him back. Do you expect this, from your perspective, do we see him at all this weekend against the Nationals?
If you're not going to, why isn't he on IL? So for my own sake, I'm going to say yes, because if he sits out for 6-7 days without going on IL, I'm going to be pretty fed up.
I agree. I'm in the same boat. There's no reason to have guys on this roster that don't play baseball. It's why Jeimer Candelario is not here anymore. It's why Alexis Diaz isn't going to be here anymore, just because there's no reason, there's no role for him anymore. So why would you keep him up? They have to. If they're up here, they have to play baseball. That's just a fact.
It just feels too like when that. I hope that they announce that he goes, or he's really not on the IL, but that he's been scratched in the lineup the last couple of games, not in the lineup today with that injury. You wonder if that just sends a blow throughout that clubhouse. I mean, he hasn't been around that long, but you remember when they played that spring training game, or that finale, if you will, of spring at Day Air Ballpark in Dayton. Francona went on this long just soliloquy about the importance of Austin Hayes and just how good of a player he is and how underrated he is and everything else. So you wonder just how much of an impact he made in a short amount of time in spring, and already the impact he's had in these, 13, 15 games. You just hope that that's not a blow to the clubhouse if he does have to miss some extended time coming up. Again, the back, I don't know. It's kind of important to have a healthy back when you're out there with a bat in your hand. So we'll see what happens. I hope that's not a severe injury. It's just more concerning, though. We see him this weekend. Is he healthy? We know the way the Reds operate. Seeing him out there doesn't mean he's healthy, and that's the other concern. So
not at all. Nobody understands how this medical staff or how the training staff works. I'm not going to blame the Reds training staff. I'm not going to do that yet until there's some article that leaks out something terrible. All I know is that it's been pretty frustrating the past 3 seasons dealing with these injuries and not having really any resolve on any of them. So it's brutal.
Reds are 16-15 1 month in. Yeah. Where did you expect them to be, especially considering how they started? Did you expect them to be about 500 at this point? Did you expect them to get to that 15-16 win range in which they did? And you got to think they're sitting at 15 wins right now, 15-4 or 16 and whatever I said, 16-15. They left a lot of wins on the table too. You think back to that stretch, 3 straight 1-0 losses. Probably could say they should have had at least one of those. I want to say all 3, but at least one of those. You can go back to opening day. To this day, Terry Francona is still just wishing that he didn't go to Elliott's guy, Jabot, right there in the in the ninth. You would love to have that one back, I'm sure. There's a lot of games that the Reds have let slip through their fingers the first month in, but yet they're still sitting here a game above 500 as we get May started today.
Yeah, and I think the worry is that we said that they had to be better than 1 game above 500 at this point, but it does feel like overall the Reds are probably playing better baseball than I thought they'd play throughout this season.
Sure.
Overall. I mean, there's been stretches where it's been worse, and there's been stretches where it's been a lot better. But I think when you average it all out, the Reds have certainly been an impressive unit to me compared to expectations. Now, far from impressive enough for me to believe that they're going to be a playoff team or anything down the stretch, but certainly enough to, where we're probably going to be able to fight for a couple more months. And I think we, sadly, do have a stretch coming up here in the middle of May, end of May, that is going to be really, really tough. And as of right now, the Reds have really only separated themselves from that bottom of the league. And even then, it hasn't been super clear, depending on where you put the Marlins at this point. They were able to sweep the Rockies, they were able to sweep the Pirates, but have struggled with really everyone else. And that's my worry getting into this next stretch. We're, a game, 2 games behind the Cubs. Cubs have played the toughest schedule in Major League Baseball. We've played one of the easiest. That's a scary place to be.
I want to say they're playing way better, but the record doesn't say that. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, surely if you look up just statistics, they're playing miles and miles ahead of where you thought they could be. Top 10 in every single statistic, essentially, pitching and
which makes the record a concern, actually.
Offense.
Right.
Yeah.
But it comes down to the fact that they are what they've been the past 3 years. They're inconsistent. You can't trust them to put together stack series wins. They can sweep a team every once in a while, and they can get swept by anybody in the same given time frame. So I'm going to be cautiously optimistic that if they can continue to win months, just go 1 game above 500 every month, it just keeps the Reds in the fight longer than I probably would have had them. But as of right now, I would say that they're definitely playing better baseball than I thought, because I did not think the catcher position would be hitting 400.
Right.
I did not think Austin Hayes and Gavin Lux would be leading the league in average and hitting home runs every at bat. I certainly didn't think Noelvi Marte was going to be a Cincinnati Red. So there's a lot of positives there to match with the fact that I did think Jeimer Candelario was going to be good. Not only is he not good, he's hurt. Spencer Steer hurt and not good. Matt McLain not good. So there's pros and cons, a lot of them each way for this team, and unfortunately, I don't know if that's going to be sustainable enough to make the postseason. But what it does do is keep the postseason alive by still having that record.
The Reds' strengths and weaknesses this year keep them in every game, but also make every game losable. it's crazy that, we have a relative expectation that the starters, at least most of them, are going to go out there and allow 3 runs or less through a quality start and give us a chance to win the game, which Brady Singer did in game 1 yesterday.
Yeah.
And then it gets blown up late. But we've also seen the Reds lose those games 1-0 3 times this year, as Kinner just said. So, the volatility of the offense that scored 24 runs in Baltimore, it gives you the opportunity to lose every game you play. But having a pitching staff that we have right now keeps you in games you shouldn't be in when your offense is inept. So it's very, very hard to predict anything with the Reds record-wise because it feels like every single game is a legitimate coin flip, whether you're playing the World Series favorite or you're playing the Colorado Rockies.
Yeah.
90 wins is that sweet spot that we've been talking about of what they would need to do to flirt with the postseason to potentially get in. That's 15 wins a month. Well, they got 15 wins in the month of April. All right, you look at what's coming up in May. Obviously, we talked about the Nationals coming up. It's a winnable series. I know we're tired of hearing it, but they're playing a lot of teams in the month of May that they're right there in the middle of the pack. They do play the Cubs later on, which we'll talk about that. But you're playing Washington. Record-wise, you're right there. The Braves, same thing. Houston, 16-14. They're right there, similar record as the Reds. Obviously, you have the White Sox. You have the Pirates again, this time in Pittsburgh. The month of May has a lot of opportunities to keep this going, whatever this going means. They were coming off 2 losses yesterday, and hopefully that doesn't snowball into another one today. But as of right now, with what we saw in the month of April, this team can get very, very high and very, very low, and I expect the same thing in the month of May, unfortunately. Just hopefully they can come out with 15 wins. 15 wins a month.
Yeah.
Just get to that 15-win-a-month marker, and then by the time it's all said and done, you're sitting at 90 wins and have a chance. So hopefully May they can keep it going. But this is around the time last year. Keep in mind, 16-13 was the exact same record the Reds had last year at this time. And then they would go on to lose 11 of their next 12 with an 8-game losing streak in there. They were 16-13. They've lost back-to-back games. Hopefully that doesn't bleed into today. So.
I'm praying. There's not a bigger roller coaster in Major League Baseball right now than the Reds. There's not. So
is this the biggest Reds roller coaster the last 3 years?
No.
Last year there was no highs. 2023 was pretty crazy.
2023 was wild. 2023 was my answer.
That was such a crazy year.
It was. No, it was unbelievable. I feel like this year it's not as much craziness because it's not the walk-offs and the wins, and obviously we're not late enough in the season yet where we're scoreboard watching and stuff, but I feel like the inconsistency of 0-1 losses and the offense looking like the best offense in the league and checking the stats and having top 5 numbers, but feeling like we get shut out all the time. I feel like this year has been bizarre in terms of how just you feel going into every Reds game. It is. It's like you're in the mystery zone every single time. Yeah. You don't know which team you're going to get. Are you going to get the 1-0 loss team, which we saw yesterday, or are you going to get the team that somehow can hit literally every pitch that's thrown to them? Right. And it's a crazy place to be, but I don't know. I still don't think it's as wild as 2023, but it's certainly up there. Got to get another couple 21 games and then a couple other 0-1 shutouts. Maybe they can get there. Yeah. Today's a must-win. They have to win this game. I'm gonna mark it a must-win. Earliest must-win,
or the season's over. I'm gonna say that I'll say the season's over if they don't win this game.
Wow,
I like it.
Wow,
I like it.
A lot of pressure on Andrew Abbott.
A lot of pressure, but he's undefeated this year so far. So,
if you had to put a name, if you had to guess the name of the injury for Jeimer Candelario, what do you think the name of the injury is?
Isn't it like low back tightness or something? Yeah. Low back strain.
And how about a lumbar spine strain?
Ooh, fun.
That's the injury. So
important to get those things figured out.
That's right.
Jeimer Candelario tells Charlie Goldsmith the update on his lumbar spine strain that there's no set rehab plan or timeline yet.
Good.
Not a surprise.
That's good.
We're waiting on it to get better. The Cincinnati Reds motto. We're just waiting on it to get better.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
The longer we can wait on Jeimer Candelario to get better is probably the best case scenario for the Cincinnati Reds. Keep him on that beautiful, beautiful IL. He can enjoy the wonderful streets of downtown Louisville. Maybe even check out Chattanooga at some point. I don't know.
But just demoted him
he I'm sure he would love it. Rehab assignment. We sent Wade Miley on a rehab assignment. He got to see Dayton. I mean, the wonderful gem city. So
Dayton's beautiful this time of year.
Yeah, maybe he can get over there and check out all 3 of the Reds affiliates. That'd be wonderful for him. Maybe show the family some of the country. But hopefully he's not seeing Cincinnati again anytime soon.
The best part about phantom injuries are they're the untreatable kind.
They are.
You just have to wait for them to get better.
We all remember Kevin Newman's gastritis. I mean, that was a big problem.
Listen, if you have to go on the IL for farting, clearly what you've given.
Jamer went on IL
team
for playing like a fart.
Yeah, I mean it's a tough place to be. These Phantom IL stints, but you know what? I think it's all fun and it's all. What Kirk Casale was gone for 6 months because his ring finger on his left hand was a little sore one day. I think that's why he was gone for 6 months. But yeah, it is wild, man.
It happens. No, it's like I said yesterday. I mean, not wishing injury on anybody, but I'm hoping that his struggles are due to, if this is a lumbar spine strain, I hope that his struggles are tied to that because there's at least justification.
It's amazing how little I care about Jamer Candelario now that Noelvin Marte's playing like this.
Valid.
I mean, I would be very nervous about whether or not he's going to be able to come back and play at any kind of sustainable level this season, but I'd rather see Marte out there anyway.
Who gets your MVP for the month? The Reds MVP for the month of April. Because I think you can go a couple different ways.
That is a good question.
And I'm going to be honest. Does Noelvi Marte win it?
He might.
I think Noelvi Marte might win it, or Austin Hayes.
Let's step away. Let's pick up with this. We do got Bengals. We'll talk Bengals as well to close it out. But that's right. We're 1 month in, so you got to give your
have to 1 month in awards. Everyone does.
Who's your 1 month into the season MVP for your Cincinnati Reds? We'll discuss next. Super chats to kick off the final radio segment of the afternoon. What we got, El?
So we got, I believe this is $1.49. Is that right? I think it's $1.49.
Yep, it's $1.49.
She just sent a wiener. It's a hot dog.
Nice.
So $1.49 for a hot dog. Thank you, Molly. And I believe John
$2
Silvani, our good friend, for a couple bucks. He gave. I second that wiener.
Okay.
So we have two wieners.
2 wieners in the chat.
Super chatted to us. Thank you,
for
guys.
$3.49.
That's right.
There you go. Like it. All right. Off the bench, Justin Kenner, Casey McAllister, Elliot Ray, and Jacob Tissett. So Elliot wanted to know if we had to name. We're 1 month into the season. The Reds are 16-15. Who is your April MVP? Your April MVP for the Cincinnati Reds. Who would you give it to?
For me, it's close. I mean, there's like 4 or 5 names I can think about giving it to. I was debating. I won't even say them, but I was debating Jose Trevino there. Yeah. I was debating Gavin Lux. I was debating Austin Hayes. I'm gonna go with Hunter Green. Hunter Green's still my guy. I know he got roughed up against Baltimore, but outside of that start, he has been near flawless this season. He's been as good as you could possibly hope for. We say it every time we bring it up just because I think it's true. The value of his contract, bar none, it might be the best in Major League Baseball. For what we're paying him and for the talent that he is, it's unbelievable. I mean, it's unbelievable. He's 3-2 on the year. Not that win and loss means a whole lot. He's got a 2.70 ERA. Again, most of that boosted from the 5 runs he gave up in Baltimore. But in 36 innings pitched, he has 43 strikeouts. And again, 5 out of his 11 earned runs came from one performance. And if you want to go beyond that, 8 out of his 11 are from either the Baltimore game or at Colorado, which isn't a real place. So I've been very, very impressed with Hunter Green. He's looked good. He's been healthy. He's been dominant. He's gone, seemingly 6 innings every single start, except for the one in Baltimore. It can't be overstated how good this guy is. So he's going to get my April MVP.
Yeah, and I think that's certainly the route I would go if I went pitcher. But for me personally, I'm going to go with Gavin Lux because of what he's been able to do in terms of leading the National League in batting average going into yesterday. He's been so high above the expectations that many of us had here in Cincinnati since July 20th of last season. Obviously, that's the back half of last year with the Dodgers. But then on the start of this season with the Cincinnati Reds, Gavin Lux is slashing .323, .410, .502 in 87 games. The other players with a slash line of 300 and 400 and 500 in that span, Aaron Judge, Vladimir Guerrero, Kyle Tucker, Bobby Witt, and Marcell Ozuna. That's a pretty dang good group.
Very good.
And that's an 87-game sample size. That's getting pretty dang big, too. So if Gavin Lux can be a star for this Reds team, how much does it change the outlook of the Cincinnati Reds as we move forward? I mean, you traded for a guy that we sat on this show and called, Dodgers scraps, and maybe the Dodgers scraps turn out to be, some of the best things the Reds can find. So Gavin Lux has been unbelievable so far this year. He's been better in the outfield than I think most of us expected him to be in left field. The sun, those pesky 6:40 start times
outside
getting in his
of the
way.
sun. Outside of the sun.
Everyone has a kryptonite.
Man, I think that'd be most everyone's. Jay Bruce was pretty dang good in the outfield. He struggled with that sun every now and then. So
nobody's tougher than the sun.
That's right, nobody. So Gavin Lux has lived up to every expectation and then doubled it so far this year. And if he can sustain this to any kind of level throughout the rest of the season, he's going to be talked about as part of that young core for the Cincinnati Reds as we move forward as well, if he's not already. I think he's been one of the best, if not the best, acquisitions the Reds have made in a long, long time.
It seems like the more down we are on off-season additions or trade additions, the better they do.
Oh, yeah.
It's like the guys that we're most excited about always seem to kind of let you down a bit. I like the Gavin. I think Gavin Lux is probably the safest one as far as April MVP for the Cincinnati Reds. Hunter Green, can't go wrong there, obviously. It has to be Lux. I love Austin Hayes, but I mean, only 13 games in the month of April. But my gosh, you want to talk about a guy that maximized those small sample size of games. Hopefully, we can get back to him playing that way here in the month of May, as we just don't know what his status is moving forward. But I'm going to go to pick someone different. You mentioned a little bit ago Jose Trevino. I've been super high on him coming in. I know we had the debate yesterday about Tyler Stevenson, but I thought that the absence of Tyler Stevenson, I mean, let's go back because we didn't know how long Tyler Stevenson would be out. But if you would have told me back in early March, mid-March, that the Reds would be without Tyler Stevenson for at least the first month of the season, I would say that is absolutely brutal because we had no clue what to expect with Gavin Lux. We had no clue what to expect, obviously, with Austin Hayes. They didn't really add any other pop in this lineup. So it was just one of those where I would have said this team's not going to be very good because that's one of the few pieces that you can count on in this lineup. And then his replacement, Jose Trevino, who was brought over mainly because of what he could do defensively, one of the better defensive catchers in baseball. And as Jacob said yesterday, he sucks defensively now. Apparently, that killed my whole.
Would love if he didn't, but he kind of does.
But Trevino hitting .323 on the season. Now we talked about only 2 home runs, only 6 RBIs. The one unique thing about the way he's been utilized is the fact that Francona keeps him in the bottom of the order. And so he's not when he does put the bat on the ball, there's really no one on base for him, of course. But he has scored, I think 11 or 12 runs or whatever in the month of April. If you would have told me that he would be one of the team leaders in runs, I would have just kind of laughed at that. But because he's constantly on base when you get to the top half of the order, which has been beneficial. I like Gavin Lux. I think that has to be it, but I would put Trevino right there just because the importance of he's made you forget that Stevenson's not in the lineup, and I think that was a tough task for him to do, and I think he's done that. You still need Stevenson back, but I think he's done a phenomenal job in the month of April considering the expectations he had coming in.
I think we all said when Stevenson was going to be out for a month or more that we were just going to punt that catcher position for a month. Like that was the thought, and it's been the backbone of this lineup, whoever you throw out there to catch every single game so far this year. So that's been an unbelievable find for the Reds. And obviously, Fernando Cruz, a guy that I liked a lot here, but if you can flip him for a guy that's going to be a 300 hitting catcher, that's a good spot to be. But I did think it was interesting, Jose Trevino third in runs on the team, as you just said. Austin Hayes second.
Really?
With 15 runs in 13 games.
That's absolutely wild. How is that even possible? How many home runs does he have? 4?
5.
5 home runs?
Team leader.
Unreal.
If we could take out like the Orioles game, if we could take that game out, I want to go look at where the numbers lie for the Reds. I do think that outlier game is really what propelled a lot of.
Well, it definitely did. It made him a top 5 offense.
Top 5 offense.
Jose Trevino has been consistent as any player.
Hayes didn't hit a home run in that game. No home run for Hayes in the 24
really?
game. Yeah.
Trevino, he's hitting 308 in his last 7. He's hitting 320 in his last 15. He's hitting 330 in his last 30. Like, he couldn't be more consistent. And I'm going to be honest with you. I don't give a rat's ass how bad you are at defense if you're going to hit 330. I just,
No.
I don't care.
Not at all.
And
Also, he's been great his entire career. He's going to figure it out.
He's going to figure it out. Good for Jose Trevino. Hand up. I'll say it every single time I talk about him because I was wrong. I was dead wrong about Jose Trevino. I thought he was going to be a bad catcher, a bad offensive catcher that was going to help out for defensive purposes. But again, hitting 175 doesn't justify me cheering for him, for his great defense. But if you're going to hit 330, yeah, I'm all in. So I think that's a good pick. I think that's a great pick.
Yeah, you said we'd be lucky if Jose Trevino hits his height or hits his weight. I don't think he weighs 330.
No.
So, good for us.
Casey, your Reds MVP for the month of April. There's one easy name on the board for you.
One easy name?
If you want it. You can take it because he has been good.
He's been awesome.
Unlike what Justin Kinner said about him.
Contrary to the agenda pushed on this show sometimes.
Agenda. Yes, everyone has an agenda, yes.
Outside of the errors he may or may not commit.
Look, I respect an agenda more than anyone.
So do I.
You got to push your narratives. I respect it, but
I mean, as the MVP of the team, I guess I'll go Ellie. I'll go with Ellie. Why not?
I think Ellie's been good.
Yeah.
He's a whole game war higher than everyone else on the team.
Yeah,
he plays every game. He's never hurt. Knock on all the wood in the world. Yeah. He's never hurt. And no matter what slump he's ever in, he's always able to figure it out. So I love him.
Ellie De La Cruz 1.2 WAR. Only two other players on the Reds above 0.5 that qualify.
Yeah.
Do you know who's second on the Reds in WAR?
Hunter?
How about Austin Hayes with 1.0 in 13 games?
We need him back.
That's just unbelievable.
He also leads the team in D-WAR.
I wasn't looking at pitching. Yeah. But, yeah, that's crazy, man.
That's wild.
Look, Nick Krall said they were going to go get a power bat, and they did.
Look, we semi-poke at Terry Francona and the rest of this Reds team for whenever they have the quotes about Austin Hayes and how crucial he is to this team and how they need him back. And in spring training, like you said, at Dayton when they talked about him hitting cleanup, and we all kind of were like, okay, Austin Hayes. Maybe they did go out and get the outfield.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, at some point we have to just believe that he's got to
play.
Guy.
He's got to play, but yeah.
The injury is ridiculous because this is now the same injury again, and that's certainly something you have to be concerned with when he missed last year. But maybe speaking too soon before we see him come back from this one, but it didn't seem to hamper him at all when he returned from last time.
Yep.
All right, off the bench. That wraps it up for us on the radio side. Again, the Reds and the Cardinals, 12:40, the first pitch. We'll see if that actually. I mean, it looks like it's going to start on time.
I would be pretty surprised if it didn't start on time. Looking at the radar, it doesn't seem like it comes in until about 12:50, 1:15. Maybe they push it preemptively, but certainly looks at least like the first 30, 40 minutes of the game will be clear, which I don't know why you started if that's the case.
Fair enough. All right, that wraps it up for us on radio. We'll switch gears to the Cincinnati Bengals. The offseason pretty much a wrap. Obviously, they could still add maybe a Justin Simmons. That'd be nice. Our Cincinnati Bengals with Justin Simmons. How cool would that be?
Be pretty rad.
Yeah. But no, the offseason pretty much it's come and gone now that the draft is wrapped up last weekend. When you combine the free agency period with the draft and all this stuff that has happened this offseason, how would you grade the Bengals offseason thus far? We'll get to that when we come back. All right, and we are back. No more radio. With the Bengals, we switched gears over there. So we kind of did this segment already in the middle of a segment.
That's true.
And now we just get to repeat ourselves. But if you had to put a grade, now that the free agency period has come and gone, the draft has come and gone, You look at the offseason as a whole right now, it's been an active, busy one. I mean, I feel like, you go all the way back to the media row at the Super Bowl with Joe Burrow doing his media tour, all the way up to where we sit here today on May 1st. A lot's happened. A lot has happened, actually. And pretty much outside of one player, everything Joe Burrow asked for during that Super Bowl weekend, he got. So, and technically doesn't not have the other piece. That guy didn't get the extension that he was kind of pushing for.
Right.
So, Joe Burrow got everything he wanted. The fans got a lot of what they wanted with some extensions that are done. Obviously, the free agency period was a little lackluster. I don't think, I think they were underwhelming there. And then the draft, I think everyone agreed that B range of a grade, C plus to that B, as far as that goes. As far as the whole offseason, when you consider where they were when the season ended to where they are now on May 1st, what grade would you put on the Cincinnati Bengals offseason right here? We'll start with Casey.
I wouldn't. I'm probably going to be pretty negative on this one, mainly because I expect the best out of my teams that I root for. And I don't think they put out their best outing this offseason. I think this was I wouldn't say a disaster because obviously they were able to retain two very key players and guys that I love in T. Higgins and Jamar. But there's a couple other things that they wanted to get done, like adding to the team, making it not the same team. I don't really feel like they accomplished that. The two exterior free agents, Oren Burks and TJ Slayton.
Don't forget Lukey Pat.
Lucas Patrick. We'll see if he ends up making a significant impact on this team. I mean, I don't know. I think that the additions to the team in the offseason, free agency-wise, was not enough. And it definitely affected how the draft played out. And that altogether kind of culminates into a below-average ranking. I have it probably somewhere around like a C-, fringe D+. You just look at that Duke Tobin interview in the draft, the combine. He wanted 3 or 4 things. He wanted T. Higgins, Jamar Chase. Trey Hendrickson's not done yet. We'll see what that ends up playing out. The grade can't be complete until that's figured out. And then adding additions to the team that's going to make an impact on the team. I don't know if he really accomplished that. And I know that it's pretty negative viewpoint because those guys are so important, T. Higgins and Jamar, but I just expected more. Like, I thought those were kind of like, that's a guarantee that you're going to do this offseason. What are you going to do outside of the guarantees this offseason that are going to put you over the edge? And I don't know if they really did enough to get over the hump. I feel like it's pretty just, staying right where you were or maybe even worse. The age-old question on this show, are the Bengals better this year than they were last year? Years prior in those off seasons, I would have said yes, they've gotten better. This year, I think they stayed the same, to be honest with you, and that's not a good spot.
Yeah,
that's not a good spot. It leaves too much variability on those games where you're having to score 40-plus points in those one-score games where
in what's supposed to be the sweet spot of your window.
Right. So I think. For me, it's like a C-. I'm not too thrilled about the whole process, but I mean, they got their main goals accomplished, so they can't fail.
Yeah.
Like that's the part where I'm like, they couldn't fail because they got Jamar and T done. If they were at this point and not had either one of those guys figured out, I would have been very upset. But I can't be too upset with the team. C- feels right for me.
Yeah. So funny enough, I don't really disagree with anything Casey just said, except for the fact that Jamar and T were guarantees. I think they are for 31 teams in this league. I do not think it's a guarantee that the Bengals sign both those guys this offseason. And because of that, I think it's pretty damn close to an A+. The Bengals have gone through the Joe Burrow era with one thing guaranteed year in and year out. The offensive line has changed. The defense has changed. The play callers have changed. The only guarantee is Joe Burrow, when you're on that field, you will have elite weapons. And the Bengals found a way to break their organizational norms, get out of their comfort zone, find money we didn't know they had, and not only extend Jamar and T. Higgins, but also extend Mike Gesicki. And I think that's something that has really flown under the radar for the Bengals this offseason as well. I think when you talk about the guarantees for the Cincinnati Bengals, if we were operating through a Bengals lens this offseason instead of being a fan, I think most of the time we all would have said, and I think we did say it, if Jamar Chase and T. Higgins are extended, there's next to no chance that they pay Gesicki. You think they take a value slot at that tight end. Maybe you bank on Eric All's health. Maybe you bank on a draft pick sliding into that role. They didn't. They spent money on offense to keep the elite side of the ball elite, and I think that is worth something. The other side of it, I think the draft coming in at a high C, low B is pretty fair across the board if you believe in any kind of upside for Shamar Stewart. I think the Bengals left that draft with 4 starters. I think Dylan Fairchild will start at guard. I think both those linebackers are going to play significant snaps, and I think Taj Brooks is going to be our RB2. So if the linebacking group got better, the DBs can stay healthy and play better than what we saw last year because, in all honesty, maybe they didn't change the names on the roster, but we didn't see Dax Hill and DJ Turner play next to each other all year long. And going into week 1, we thought Cam Taylor-Britt was going to throw his name into the Pro Bowl conversation, not be one of the worst corners in football. So if he can take any kind of step to what we thought he was last offseason, if Dax Hill can stay healthy and play outside corner, which obviously they have enough faith in him to give him that 5th-year option to keep him here as that outside corner. If DJ Turner can get healthy and play like the awesome version of an outside corner we saw from him before he got hurt. I mean, he looked incredible before his injury against the Giants. So I'm more optimistic, I think, in a lot of the young pieces on this Bengals defense with a revamped linebacking room than I was, last year. And I do think this team got better. And I think that part of that getting better is keeping Jamar Chase and T. Higgins in stripes next year because I don't think that was as much of a guarantee. And I think that's what pushes them up into a comfortable A, if not A+.
I disagreed with Casey until he asked the question, are the Bengals better today than they were last year? And I don't know if that answer is yes. I think it could be. I think you have some names in there. Maybe it's the draft. I don't think it's the free agents they've signed defensively that are going to move the needle. So it really all comes down to can the guys you drafted replace or at least equate to what you did last year at least. And I don't know. I don't know. I don't think so. I would venture to say it's going to be a very similar defense. Yes, you have a new defensive coordinator. Yes, they're going to change things up. But if you don't have Trey Hendrickson next year, and again, who knows what's going to happen this offseason? Who knows if he's going to get a deal done with the Bengals? Who knows if he's going to play or not play week 1, week 2, week 3, yada, yada, yada. But if they don't have Trey Hendrickson next year, I think the defense, not only did it not improve, I think it got worse. Because you're just losing so much production. Could you get some of the numbers back with the guys you drafted? Maybe. But that's asking a hell of a lot. When you're asking to replace 12 sacks, I mean, it's a lot. The team ranked nearly dead last in sacks with the sack leader. And now we're talking about removing the sack leader for a guy that had 4 sacks in college in 4 years.
Fun nugget, Micah Parsons had 5.5 sacks in college.
That's fair. That's fair. How many years?
4. 3 years as a starter.
So who knows? It's a question mark. It's a jump ball as of right now. I would venture to say they're not better today than they were at the end of last year. But saying that, I do think it's been a somewhat successful offseason because I don't think anybody thought the Bengals would get both of them. I did not think the Bengals would get T. Higgins and Jamar Chase.
To be fair to your guys' points, the grade is really incomplete. As it stands right now, like if I was a teacher, I'm grading the test. Right now, you got a C-, but I still got a couple questions left that could bump it up to a B-, a B. I mean, we're talking about the Trey Hendrickson thing, whatever they decide on that. It changes the grade if they trade him.
Would a Trey Hendrickson extension bump that grade up for you or down?
I'm not expecting an extension, but I'm expecting like a...
If they did get a 2 or 3 year extension done with Trey Hendrickson, would that bump that grade up or down for you?
Ooh.
If you pay Trey Hendrickson $33 million a year over a 3-year extension, that hurts your grade for me this offseason.
Yeah, I agree. I
don't think it's going to happen. I'm just saying, in terms of the trade discussion, I don't think an extension is a good decision.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I do think, though, my expectation of that answer for that question as the teacher is just giving him more money this year. That's the correct answer in my mind. And I guess it's more of a subjective question for a lot of different folks. But
Bengals love sitting on cap. They're not sitting on $25 million.
Right. and
that's
the unknown of Pratt and the other
that's
guys
another
on
five
the team.
right there. That's another $5
Exactly.
million.
So you're getting up to $28-30 million if you move on from Jermaine Pratt. Still,
How much did they sit on last year heading in? Because I think
it was
20.
close to 10.
Yeah,
It was
they
close
usually
to
like
10
to
or was
sit
it
around
20? It was 10.
It was close to 10 by week 1 once you
I
count
believe you,
53
yeah.
in practice squad. A lot of the numbers that you see count top 51, which doesn't count inactives in practice squad, which do take up a
good
couple
chunk.
million dollars,
That's heading
$6-7
in,
million dollars of the cap. So you have to incorporate those numbers as well. Bengals are a very unique team because I also think last year a lot of that money was saved because of what they had to do this offseason. I think that sitting on $20 million when you have to pay Jamar and T what you have to pay this year and rolling it over and having less cash spent last offseason, I think that was a very planned thing to have take place. I will be interested to see what the Bengals do this year because if they're even close to 20, I mean, that's going to be very frustrating.
Yeah.
I guess for me, you'd have to. I'm going to say B- because you did keep Jamar Chase and Jamar. I don't think there was fear of losing Jamar, but there was fear of that getting ugly. Maybe I guess the negotiations, but you did keep T. You got obviously Gesicki taken care of. Like everything Joe Burrow wanted, technically you kept him happy from that perspective. So I'm gonna say B- from there. But I mean, outside of that, it was close to a C only because all I kept hearing from Bengals fans was how much money they had to spend this offseason, and I don't think they got any impact players. And you could say, well, okay, they got the extensions done. But getting the extensions done versus the tag, putting the tag on T. Higgins versus getting an extension done, you actually saved money by getting the extension done because you roll over some of that money. So that was supposed to save money. Same thing with Jamar. Also, like with Burrow's money, everyone said, well, when you sign him, that doesn't actually hit the books for a couple years down the road. And it's the same thing with these two. I just don't think that they act with that urgency. You have Joe freaking Burrow. And I don't feel like this organization acts with any urgency whatsoever to capitalize on that window. And I think that by the time it does get to the point to where all those contracts are hitting the cap, how are they going to navigate? When they have all this money to spend and they don't navigate through it with urgency, how are we supposed to expect that they're going to make all the right decisions when they're having to really be creative when they don't have cap in their favor? They're going to have a friendly cap next year too, right? As far as that goes. Do you feel that they don't move with the right urgency, in my opinion? You have Joe Burrow, you have Jamar and T, and I thought that missing the playoffs last year was a result of the defense. You went after a defensive coordinator that you feel good about, but the rest of the league wasn't pounding down the door of Notre Dame to go acquire him, so you're hoping that's the case. You mentioned the starters that you get through the draft. Well, you got to start somebody, but did you get good starters? I mean, you're going to start them, but are they – I mean, you don't know. I mean, that's the case for most teams who go and get guys to start as rookies. I think B's friendly on my end. I'm not overwhelmed by their offseason at all. I'm pretty underwhelmed by their offseason. Yes, they got Jamar and T taken care of, but they got it taken care of in a way that had they done it sooner, it wouldn't even have been noise to begin with. So they're having to clean up a mess versus take care of business. I just think it was a very underwhelming offseason considering they should have been hitting the offseason with more urgency. You just missed the playoffs for 2 straight years. And I think a lot of their problems that we're going to be talking about in 25 potentially are the same problems they've had for the last 2 or 3 years.
For sure.
The run game, although improved, it's still not one of the best in football. The offensive line, still question marks. Defense, still not very, very good. And for 3 straight years, it's been Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. That's all we talk about. When we talk about the offensive line, we talk about the run game, we talk about the defense. For 3 straight years, this team has had the same problems. Maybe that comes to an end this year, but it feels like they didn't technically address all of those with the urgency that they should have.
Now, I will say I'm very glad that we're going to be talking about offensive line and defense this year instead of offensive line and defense and who is Joe Burrow throwing to.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like everyone that's giving the chat's, more in that C range as well. I feel like everyone that's giving the Bengals a C is just not incorporating the unlikelihood of paying T. Higgins and Jamar Chase for the Bengals. That doesn't happen. It's not something we do. We kept 2 guys that are going to keep butts in seats and have the Bengals be a fun team to watch for a long time, and I don't think that can be overstated.
Yeah, I mean, to Jacob's point, I guess, and his perspective is from a Bengals perspective. I think a lot of people in the chat are thinking more of like a
competent
league perspective.
championship.
Yeah, a league
program.
perspective, and that's fine. You can again grade and fan how you want to.
Absolutely.
Right? And no one's right or wrong on this. It's a very subjective question here, and I think we're all allowed to change our answer as the offseason progresses.
And no matter what any of us grade the offseason, we all want the players to be good. I mean, they're all Bengals now. I mean, even if you give the Shamar Stewart pick a D-, we all want him to get 20 sacks. He's a Bengal now. That's how it works.
Yeah, and honestly, I think from a Bengals perspective, and I think many people would agree with this, they feel pretty comfortable right now in the building. I think they got a lot of their objectives done. I think there's maybe a few areas they would like to have maybe gotten a little more improvement on, but as of right now, I feel like they're comfortable going into next season and competing for the AFC North and hopefully for a Super Bowl. I just feel like from my perspective, which is more of a league-focused mentality and championship mentality, that, like Kenner said, there was no urgency there. Like some of the moments in this offseason where I thought, if you were going to get Jamar and T done, I wish you would have gotten it done sooner so you could have had more of a chance in free agency. And it just kind of like snowballed, right? Like they didn't get that done, so then free agency lacked, and because of the free agency lacked, you didn't get a bunch of key players and role players. You're going into the draft having to reach, and then it just snowballed into something that ended up being, in my eyes, a below average offseason. But, a lot of it, the majority, the weight of this grade is keeping your key players. I mean, if they lost out on T, I mean, that's a failure in my point.
I also think you're grading it on what you wanted the ceiling to be, and I'm grading it based on what my fear of the floor was.
Yeah.
For what this offseason could be. And it's just a pessimistic way to look at the Bengals, and I'm aware that that's how I operate, but I just had no faith that they were going to give me joy this offseason. And signing Jamar and T, that's about as happy as I could be. Bengals currently plus 225 to win the AFC North. Baltimore Ravens minus 145, almost the same exact odds as week 1 of last year. Bengals tied with the Packers and the 49ers in terms of Super Bowl odds. That's just inside, right around that top 10 range. So certainly considered a contender in Vegas. We'll see how it goes. Obviously, I think a lot of that's going to come down to the start of this year and how that schedule shakes out.
And they always start out hot, so that's good.
Yeah. That's the other thing about these contracts getting done, though. I mean, obviously, you want to get Trey done before week 1, so that's not hanging over your head, whether that is just a 1-year bump or a multi-year extension or getting him to just give up and play on 16.5, which I do think is an option that's on the table here. That needs to get done before week 1 so you don't have a cloud hanging over your head. But to get these other two done and not be worrying about them the whole offseason, and we can just talk about the offensive line and who's going to start at guard, and we can just talk about these young DBs getting healthy. I do think that is a very underrated part of this season when there are so many other questions to be had. Al Golden, where are these guys going to play on the defense? What's the scheme going to be? You can focus on those things. Zach Taylor can spend more time on the defensive side of the ball, setting up Al Golden and everything that's going to happen with that culture in the new coach coming in. And I think that just gives you a level of confidence in the offense that cannot be overstated.
All right. Well, that wraps it up. Anything else to close out?
Reds? No, the only thing I was gonna say is if the Bengals get Trey Hendrickson to play 17 games for them this season, I think it's a winning offseason.
Yeah, it becomes a B minus.
I think it's a winning offseason. That's the only thing I'll add. If he doesn't play, I think we're talking to look at like a D minus. But Trey Hendrickson is rather important to the Bengals this season. I don't know about the long term, but this season I would like Trey Hendrickson to suit up once again.
Another fun nugget. I don't know what's going on oldx.com right now, but these just keep rolling in. Danielle Hunter, 4.5 sacks in his career at LSU, 1 sack in his senior year.
How about that?
Very similar athletic type.
Almost.
Yeah.
Exactly the same.
Yeah, almost exactly the same.
How about our Bengals? You know what? I lied. A+.
There we go, Kenner.
A+.
Give me a Who
Super
Day.
Bowl Who Day.
That's right.
There you go.
We used to have to pry those out of
I mean, it's not. You don't have to pry now.
That's
I'm all
what
about
you
the
are.
stripes, man.
You're a Bengals fan.
Well, I mean, now that you're a Bengals fan, we can just kind of talk about it openly in this room. Browns are the only team in the division with Super Bowl winning quarterbacks, and they have 2 of them.
Wow.
Yeah. I can't believe I jumped ship.
I know. Flacco and Kenny.
I'm putting a lot of faith in a guy that's never won a Super Bowl, leaving 2 guys who have. I don't know. Just saying. It was a gamble.
I'm sure if you were still a Browns fan, you'd have fun with that.
Shador is out at school,
Yeah, he is.
He's, trying to be there for the youth. I don't know. He was running up hills.
He was?
What's Joe Burrow
You think
doing?
he was the first choice to speak to that school?
Probably 144.
Okay.
Somewhere around there.
Yeah. 144th. Yeah.
I wonder how they got his number. That's
Well, yeah,
all
I
I'm
wonder if
curious.
someone
How did
prank
that school get his number?
Did you see how high the number is now?
What?
First round picks prank call?
What?
It's like 9 or 10 of them.
Oh, my.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Someone called and said that one of them was getting traded right after they got picked. Said, "You're going to a new team, buddy."
Pack your bags.
I think that's great.
It's also now being reported that they think most of these calls in this draft were
Yeah.
from Jack Olbrich passing numbers around.
Well, you did see what just came out now, though.
What just came
The
out?
NFL sent those phone numbers, including Shador. Over 2,000 people got those numbers.
Nice,
So
nice.
They should find themselves
In
too.
a Shador lens here. Obviously, I don't know about most of the other prospects because they don't get talked about nearly as much as Shador does. But because Shador Sanders didn't have an agent, his number goes to every team. If you have an agent, you can control where it goes. So obviously, the Falcons probably aren't getting Shador Sanders' number had he had an agent. So just an interesting point there.
Can you imagine if he actually is good though?
No.
Like, what if he is
Like,
the Browns?
honestly, not really.
What if he is the Browns? Like, what if he's the Jaden Daniels of Washington? What if he is the CJ Stroud of the Texans? What if the Browns are that?
I would be exponentially more shocked if Shador Sanders is good than I was about Deshaun Watson being bad. And I was floored with how bad Deshaun was.
Yeah. Me
Like,
too.
I thought there was some real pain there. Yeah, I mean, I was scared. I was scared when the Browns made that trade for Deshaun, and obviously it worked out well for the Bengals so far. Baker beat us every time he played us, and Deshaun doesn't even play, so that's fun. But yeah, I mean, I'd be so surprised. I'll pull a Mel Kiper and retire, but keep doing it.
Yeah,
if Shador's good.
Over under a half game played for Deshaun this year.
Oh, under. I think he's played his last game in Cleveland. I don't think you take two quarterbacks in this draft and position yourself to take a quarterback in next year's draft if you were still confident. However, I give him a lot of credit. They might have the two quarterbacks with the most lack of self-awareness in the entire NFL. I mean, it's pretty wild. They have let it be known basically that they're not bringing it back. He keeps showing up to the workout facilities.
Posting videos,
He's
working
saying
out.
They may count me out, but I'm going to come back better than ever. And I'm like, you said that the last two times.
Now, my question for you, and you were a Browns fan when this happened, so maybe you do have some insight on it. Miles Garrett, after he signed that extension, went and did a couple interviews, and they asked him pretty point blank multiple times, are you comfortable with the trajectory of the quarterback position? And when he said yes, and he always said he liked what the plan was, and I think most people kind of took that as, they told him they're going to take Shador too.
Yeah.
Obviously, that didn't happen. Do you think he was talking about Deshaun? He's defended Deshaun Watson a ton.
He has. I mean, when he bashed everyone, that was.
I know. That's what I mean. Like, is there any chance that the Browns told Miles Garrett, Deshaun Watson's your quarterback, and he said, let's go?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
So he was just lying about knowing the plan?
I think so.
Okay.
The other thing, too, that people will mock and make fun of my former team for is just how much Joe Flacco is loved in that locker room.
Yeah, it is pretty funny.
It was a Austin Hayes run. It was just a brief, just a brief stint of explosiveness. But he went out with a bang too.
That's right.
Yeah.
I mean, it was pretty ugly. But yeah, Flacco 1, Shador starts at 2, probably starts by the end of the month of September.
I think Gabriel starts it too.
I think what if Gabriel's the guy?
I think Gabriel's a better backup than Shador is.
And you're out. Weren't you high on Shador?
No.
Not heading into this draft, but a year ago at this time when we first met.
No.
Grip it and rip it. Did we do a segment where I thought
might
you were
have
high?
said he would
You were
go.
high. If I have to go back to the
No,
vault.
I could have said he was going to go 1, but I've always hated him and think he stinks.
Did we share that opinion? I remember. I was
I'm not
looking
sure.
right across.
I
You
do
were
remember
sitting
we
right
bought or
there.
sold if Jalen Milroe was going to be the Heisman and number 1 overall pick like 5 times.
Yeah, someone ripped me the other day and said, you're an idiot, and said Jalen Milroe was going to be the number 1 quarterback
like
taken up the
in
board. I said,
September?
no, it was a buy or sell. It was a buy or sell.
And we bought it.
I bought it so much that I didn't think there was a chance in hell that Shador would go to Cleveland.
Yeah.
Little did we know there he was in the 5th round. All right. It's 12:02. Look at us working overtime.
OT.
That's right.
Yep. All right, that wraps it up for us. Until tomorrow, off the bench.
Love you.